Yeah, how's it going on? Hope you're all doing well. As you may or may not know, I'm currently working on my 30 React Projects course, which is a project-based course concentrated on the React framework. So I sadly not able to post a new project for today, or for this week, but I am going to leave you with 3 projects from my earlier 30 HTML, CSS and JavaScript course for all you to enjoy. Also, I'm going to leave a coupon code down in the description below if you want to check out the course, so you're going to get a great discount. Now, I am at project number 24 currently on recording it. This means 6 more to go, and that also means that I still have to edit the entire thing and also go through fine-tuning it and writing everything. I still have a lot of work to do before the product is completely done, and I'm strongly hoping that this is going to be one of those great ones where I really put a lot of work into that. Now, as I said, I'm planning on releasing it in approximately 2 weeks, but for the exact release date, stay tuned to the channel, stay subscribed to the channel, and also I'm going to include the day 1 coupon code, which is going to have a great discount on it. So, enjoy the projects and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey, what is going on everyone, and welcome to another project. Now in this project we're going to create a expandable search bar. In most cases you will create navigation bars with this expandable search bar, or just somewhere in the site there will be a expandable search bar. So in order to achieve this, we're going to use a couple of things. We're going to select elements from the DOM using getElementById or query selector. Actually, we are going to use query selector for a couple of things because you need to select classes and also tags. Then we're going to use variables like let and const, functions, regular and arrow functions, and we're going to manipulate the DOM then a bit by manipulating the classes of the elements using toggle class, add class, remove class, and so far and so on. Now in order to achieve this, we're also going to use an event listener, and we're going to use the click event. Okay, so let me also show you the finished project. I already have it. Oh yeah, and we're also going to use FontAwesome for that search for that loop. Okay, so first of all, this is what we're going to create. When we're going to click on this search icon, this input tag will appear. Now you can also see when I'm hovering over it, it's going to change its shape and size. Now if I click in it, it's going to change its size again. It's going to get much larger. If I click on the loop icon, if I click somewhere else, it's going to go back to its initial form. Then when I hover it, it's going to try to extend in order to communicate the user that, hey, this can extend further. Now, if I click on the loop icon again, then it's going to disappear. Also, if I click anywhere else excepting the navigation bar, so even if I click down here, it's going to disappear. So once again, even if I click on the title, it's going to disappear. Okay, so fun times ahead. Let's get into the... Alright, so first things first, let's create our index.html. Index.html, then let's create a boilerplate. Up here I'm going to already include my script from FontAwesome. So you could either go to FontAwesome, create an account and get your link, or you could go and grab onto the CDN from Google and just copy it in between 2 script tags above your title. Okay, and up here we're also going to link up our style.css. Okay, so this part is done. Now let's go down into our body, and this is going to be very simple and very quick. We're just going to create 2 tags. One will be the navigation, not going to give it any class or any ID, but within here I'm going to create a container, so a general container, a div with the name of search container. Within our search container, I'm going to create an input tag with a type of text. I'm also going to give it a class of search input, and then we're ID. I don't need ID, so let's delete this part, but I'm going to use a placeholder. So let's type in here placeholder and then just a text of search, so you can indicate to the user that this is the search input. Okay, underneath our input I'm going to create our loop, and for this I'm going to use FontAwesome. Now because I'm having FontAwesome linked up, I'm going to create an icon tag. I'm going to give this a ID of search btn, and then I'm going to give it a FontAwesome class of FAS, and then FA, just FA, and then search. And also let me open this up using live server. So there's a document and there's our search icon. Okay, our input and our search icon. Now, after our navigation, I'm going to create where usually would be the main tag. So main tag, and within here, let's create an H1. So this would be actually the body of the page. Everything up here would be just the navigation. Now within here, let's create an H1. Let's give it the title of expandable search bar. And after our title, let's just create a container of content. And within here, I'm going to create a paragraph tag. Within the paragraph tag, I'm going to create a lorem ipsum. So just a generic text. Now I could just take this and copy it 2 more times. And then we're done with our HTML. But before we're leaving our HTML, let's also link up our script tag. Let's call this search.js. Okay, that's it. Now let's create our style.css file, style.css. Let's go in here and let's first of all hit the general reset. So reset, let's reset the margins, 0, padding 0, and let's also reset, let's set everything to box sizing, border box. Okay, next up, let's grab onto the body, and I just want to change the font of this. I don't like the font, so let's go into a body and let's use a different font family. Now you can choose whatever you want, whatever you like. I'm going to go with, say, Joe. Okay, this is a pretty nice font which is built into our basic HTML. Now let's also change the background color. Again, you could use it whatever color you want. I'm going to use this pinkish color. Let's see, hexadecimal of 7D to AE8. And then for the text color, obviously we need to change this to a much brighter color. So I'm going to go with a completely white color of FFF. Now let's grab onto our navigation tag, and let's set it a height of 60 pixels. Okay, so our navigation will be up here and it's going to have a height of 60 pixels height. Now I am zoomed in a bit, so if I zoom to 200%, but I rather stayed zoom in order for you to see this better. Okay, next up, let's change the background color of our navigation. As I said, you can use whatever color you want. I'm going to choose this bright yellow. Ugh, blinds me. Now let's also let's push this part into the center. We could just use not flex, but display flex, and now I can use justify content center and align items to the center, and it will be also not only aligned within here in the center, but also up here and down here. Okay, next up, let's take the main tag and let's give it a height of 100 viewport heights. This just means that the main tag does not end here, but it spreads down here. Okay, so I'm doing this in order for you to see then that it doesn't matter where I click, it's going to reset our search bar up there. Okay, next up, let's give the paragraph text a bit of a padding. Let's say padding 1 rem all over the place, top, bottom, left and right. And then let's also change the H1. Let's give this a bit of let's say margin. So H1, let's give the margin or a margin of 2 rem, which you're going to give it top, bottom, left and right. And let's also align the text to center, so text align center. Now I'm not going to do anything else for this part. Now let's start changing our input tag. So first of all, let's grab onto the input tag, input, and I'm going to change its width to 0 pixels. Okay, now we can still see it, so let's take out the outline. Actually, first of all, the borders, let's set them to none. Now it's already gone, but also when I click in it, I don't want the outlines to be seen, so let's go with outlines and also none. Now later on we do want to see it out, but first of all, let me style the FAS, which is the class of the icon tag, because it's white and we can't see anything. So let's just change the color to hash, let's say 111. So we have a black color. Let's also increase this font size to 1.3 rem. I'm going to show you later on what I'm doing this, because I also want this to have the same size as the input tag. And let's also give it a bit of a padding of top and bottom 10 pixels and left and right 5 pixels. Okay, so in order for this to be centered, if not, it's going to be aligned to the top. Okay, now when we hover over our FAS, I just wanted to have so in a hover state, let's give it a cursor of pointer so we know we're over it. Okay, so now we know we're over our search icon up there. And let's also dim the color a bit. So let's go with color. Let's go with the hash of free. So when I hover over it, we know that let me change this to 0. When I go over it, you can say it's dimming just a tinge. Okay, now when we have our input active, so what we're going to achieve here is when we click on the search icon, the input should appear. Now for this, we're going to use here a bit of a trickery. We're going to set, first of all, a class which we're going to call active search. Now when this class exists, we're going to actually, for the input active search. Now when this input has the class of active search, then we're going to change its width to, first of all, 80 pixels. Then we're going to give it a border radius of 12 pixels. Let's also give it a border because we took out the borders of 1 pixel solid. And let's go with a gray color. And let's give it a bit of a padding of 10 pixels. 10 pixels and 5 pixels. Okay, let me also give it the class of active so you can see what we're doing. After that, I'm going to take out the class of active. So there's our input and it has the class of search. And if I also give it the class of active, then we're going to start seeing our input tag. Now we saw when it comes in, so when it appears, it has a bit of a transition, a transition effect. So let's give it a transition of 0.3 seconds. And it's only going to transition to its width. So we can type in here width. And it's going to have an effect of ease in. Now also going to change the font size that we're going to type in here width to 16 pixels. And let's give it a box shadow of 0, 1 pixel, 5 pixels, 2 pixels, and an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, and 0.3 for the alpha. Not box sizing, box shadow. There we go, there's a box shadow. Now you saw when, let's take a look at our finished project. So let's click on it. When I'm hovering over it, it's changing its size again. So in order to achieve this, we're going to take this input class of active and let's give it a hover. And all we need to do is change, we're going to delete everything in here, change the size to, let's say, 120 pixels. So when I'm going to hover over it, you can see it's changing its size. And let's also copy in our, not this, but this transition effect. So for both of the effects, when I hover in and when I hover out, it has that light transition effect. Now you saw that in our finished project, when we focused in it, when we clicked in it, then the input text changes its size again. So let's take this, copy it, and instead of hover, let's say focus. Now we can change now the width to 300 pixels and also leave in this transition effect. So in other words, if I go now here and click in it, it's going to get much larger. Now I would recommend to reduce or actually increase the speed to 0.6 seconds. So this is the effect that we want. Okay, so that's pretty much it for our styling. Next up, let's create a JavaScript file. So first of all, I'm going to go back into our HTML and take out the class of active search because we're going to insert this class using JavaScript. So let's create a JavaScript file. We called it search.js. And within here, I'm going to grab onto just two things. So let's first of all create a const. Let's call this search btn. And we're going to the document and get element by ID. And we're going to grab onto the ID of search btn. Okay, let's also open up our console, F12. And let's console log our button. Not class, console log. Okay, so we can now see if we grab down to the right thing, hit enter, and there we go. Next thing, I need to create another const. I'm going to grab onto the search input. So let's go again to the document. And this I'm going to use query selector because I'm going to select the class of search input. Now I'm selecting this class because I want to add on to it, and we want to add on to that class of active search. So let me go down here with our console and also console log our search input. Yep, both of them are correct. Now let's grab onto the search btn, and we're going to add a event listener to it. Now we're going to listen for a click, and when we click on that icon, we're going to use a function, and this function will do the following things. So it's going to take the search input and it's going to grab onto the class list and it's going to add the class of active search. And down here, we're going to console log our inputs so we can see if the active class was added. So if I click on this icon tag down here, we should see, yep, now it has also the class of active search. Okay, as you can see, everything we added in our CSS is now working. So it's getting larger if I focus in it. If I focus out, it's getting smaller again. If I hover over it, it's getting larger, and so far and so on. Now if I click on this again, nothing happens. Now I could either tell it to remove it then afterwards if I click on it again, but the easiest way is instead of using add class, and to copy this, to use, and comment it out, to use toggle. And this is just toggle between the class of active search. So if I click on it, it's going to have the class of active. And if I click on it again, it's going to remove the class of active. So this is pretty easy, isn't it? Now, next up, I want to achieve that if I click somewhere else, also that class should be removed. Now for this, we're going to go to the document.querySelector, and we're going to select the main tag. And to this main tag, we're going to add an event listener. And again, we're going to listen for a click. So if we click within our main, so everywhere else, excepting our navigation, then let's use here arrow function this time. This is basically like an anonymous function. We're going to take our search input, class list, and this time we're going to remove the class of active search. Okay, let's hit save. Now let's see, we're clicking on it, we have it active, we can use it, and if I click anywhere else down here, for example, and go up here, it's gone. So I need to click on it. I can also disable it from here, so I could toggle it on and off that class. But if I click down here, it's also going to remove that class. Okay, so as I said, pretty short but pretty fun project. So hope you enjoyed it and see you next time. Bye bye. Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another JavaScript project. In this project, we're going to create a vertical timeline using JavaScript. Now, I'm also going to have a bit of a longer CSS than usual, but hey, you will learn something new. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to actually learn in this project. We're going to select elements from the down using query selector, use variables like let and const, functions, regular functions, and arrow functions, conditionals, if statement, conditional operators, and logical operators like greater than, less than, equality, and or logical operators. We'll also use loops like for loop, event listeners. Now we are going to use a couple of special event listeners. Well, for example, we're going to listen for the DOM content load. So exactly when the page loads, we're going to listen when that happens. Then we're going to listen for a load event, a resize event, and a scroll event. We'll also manipulate DOM by changing element styles, showing and hiding elements. We're going to also change class lists by adding and removing them. And last but not least, we're also going to use an increment operator. Okay, so hope you're excited. Let me also show you the finished project. Let's hit a refresh first of all. And there we go. Now when we scroll down, each element will appear and the other one will disappear. Okay, as you can see, one appears and the other disappears. Now we can go completely down to the page, and also if we go up, then elements appear and they disappear. It's a pretty cool project. Okay, so hope you're excited. So let's get into it. Okay guys, let's create the index.html file. And within here, let's start out with a boilerplate. Now up here, I'm just going to include our style sheet that we're going to create later on. So what am I doing? Link. I'm typing in king. Link. Okay, style sheet. CSS. Let's give this a title, a vertical timeline. And now let's go down into our body. And actually, we're going to create two sections. One will be the header. I'm also going to give this a class of intro. And within here, I'm going to create a container. So class container, which should contain our artwork and also an H1 of vertical art. And within here, I'm going to use the HTML sign. So I'm going to use the, hey, where are you? And dar. There we go. So let's open this up using live server. Right click, open with live server. Come on, boo boo. There we go. There's an in work project and there's a finished project. Okay, right after our header, we're going to create a section with a class of timeline. And within this section, we're going to create an unordered list, then a list item, and within our list item, let's actually save this in. We're going to create a div, which is going to contain a h2 and a paragraph tag. And actually, the paragraph tag should be outside the h2. Okay, for the h2, we're just going to type in a few years. So let's start with 1935, let's say. And within our paragraph tag, we're going to create a lorem ipsum. Okay, now I need to repeat this a couple of times, and I mean from this L1, not L1, Li, we're going to repeat this, well, as much time as you wish. Okay, but I think I just created, actually check my CSS, I created, whoa, 13 of this. Damn it. Okay, so let's copy. You can copy this 13 times. If you wish, you can change the date. If not, don't. You can change it later on. So let's copy this 12 more times. So the complete li. Hey, by the way, you could also do, for example, this. If you go to the li and close it up, boom. Going to close up the content. It's still there. Okay, so we can still open it up. But you don't see that much of it, so you can start copying it. So wait, we had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Boom. That's a lot of HTML. Down here, we're going to include our script. So let's create our script tag and let's call this something. Let's leave it main.js. All right. Next up, let's create our CSS. So let's create a CSS file, style.css. And first, I'm going to create a general reset. So not only we're going to reset everything, but also we're going to reset everything that has a before and a after. There should be before, and there should be a comma. And now we can reset our margins and paddings. Margin 0, padding 0, and we're also going to set everything to have a border box. Border box. Not a border box, a box sizing. Box sizing of border box. Okay, so we're done with our general reset. Now let's take care of our body. Now within here, just going to select a font family. Let's see, Seijo. Let's go with this one. Okay, I'm going to set the entire color of our body to a DDD. Also, this is very important. We're going to set the overflow on the x-axis to hidden. As you can see here, content is clipped and no scrolling mechanism should be provided to the view and the content outside the clipping region. Okay, so this is very important. And let's also give it a padding to the bottom of 200 pixels and also a margin. No. Not going to do this right here. Okay, next up, let's take our class of intro. I could have named it header, but I have the tag of header, had the class of header, so let's just call it intro. Now, within here, we're going to first of all set our background to a picture. I'm going to use a URL, and we're going to use a URL from Unsplashed. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this in the entire URL. So if you go to unsplash.com and we search for this ID, you would get this image. So as soon as I hit save, actually I still need to set it. Okay, there's our text, and up here is our header. Really small, that is. Let's also set it to cover, to center and cover. And let's also set it to no repeat. Okay, that's pretty much it for this one. Now let's give it some kind of size. We want the header to take up, for example, for the width, 100% of its container, which is the body. In this case, we're going to position it. This is very important. We're going to position it. Hey, what you doing? We're going to position it fixed. So it's not going to move when we scroll. Okay, it's going to stay. And oh yeah, and where is it fixed to? Where it's fixed to the top, we're going to set to 0. Okay, now let's also give it a height of, let's say, 25 viewport heights. If you want to make it larger or smaller, you could do this, but I'm going to remain with 25 viewport heights. I'm going to show you why, because let me show you the finished project. Within here, within our finished project, you see this ends up here. This is approximately, well, this is exactly 75 viewport heights, and it's ending down here. Okay, let me get back to our project. So we set it as fixed, we set it top, we gave it a height, and now I'm going to push it to the front or to the upper layer of 3. So I'm going to set the z index to 3, and everything that's going to be scrolled, let me just show you this really quickly, is going to be scrolled underneath it. It's going to be underneath another layer. Okay, so this is the top layer, this is the bottom layer. This goes underneath of this. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. Now let's give it also a box shadow. Let's say 0, 0, 10 pixels, 3 pixels, and a black color. But I'm going to use RGBA for this because I want to be able to set the alpha, let's say 0.5. And let's also give it a border to the bottom. So until now we only have this text shadow. Wait, not here, but here. I also want to have a bit of a border down here. So let's get a border bottom of 1 pixel solid and the color of hash 333. And that should be enough. Okay. I know it's hardly noticeable, but it's also the idea behind this, in order to be hardly noticeable. Okay, next up, let's take care of a class of container, which is containing, let me just show you this very quickly. Ooh, I need to get up here, which is the container of this. Okay. Now let's set our container to a width of 90% and a max width of 1200 pixels. Let's give it margins top and bottom 0 and left and right auto. And let's push our text to the center by giving text align to the center. Now our title is here in the center of the page. Now let's also take care of our title. Let's grab onto our H1. Let's increase first of all its font size to 5.5 rem. Let's give it a text shadow in order to pop out a bit of 2 pixels, 3 pixels, 2 pixels, and let's go with the hash 333. I also want to increase the letter spacing a bit. Let's say 4 rem, 4 pixels. Okay, so just a bit of letter spacing there. Now let's push it to the center by giving it, let's say, a padding from the top of 100 pixels. Okay, and this is approximately in the center. I can push it down, up, left, and right if you wish to change its position, but I would leave it this way. Okay, next up, let's take care of our timeline. So first things first, we're going to select our class of timeline, and we're going to position it from the top 25 viewport heights. Now, its position needs to be relative for this, and also its height will be 75 viewport heights. Now for our timeline UL, so for the UL in the timeline, set timeline, although, I don't need this. Let's say UL unordered list, and let's give it a padding of 50 pixels top and bottom and 0 left and right. Now for each of our LIs, so our list items, let's set the list style to none. Let me scroll up a bit. Let's position them relative, and let's give them a width of 6 pixels. Let's also give them a margin to top and bottom of 0 and left and right auto, so they can center themselves, and let's also give them a padding from the top of 50 pixels. Now let's change the background color. This is actually going to give it a color to a hash of 333, and let's give it a box shadow of, let's say, 0, 0, 10 pixels, 2 pixels, and hash 333, so a blackish grayish color. Okay, so there's our timeline. Now let's position it. So we're going to grab onto our LIs again, and let's say after, I'm going to create an empty content, an empty string. We're going to position this absolute, and we're going to push it from the left 50%. Now to its bottom is going to be 0. And now we can give it a transform on the x-axis. Wait a second. Translate on the x-axis minus 50%. Okay, let's also give it a width of 300 pixels. No, sorry, 30 pixels. And height 30 pixels. Okay, and let's also give it a border radius of 50. Border, but radius of 50%, so it's going to be round. Okay, and background will be inherited. Okay, and now we have these little dots. So each of this div, you can see it ends right there, has this little dot right here, and this is this dot. And you will see that this dot will change color when a object appears. Okay, so let's go to our project, and let me also switch back to our project. Now within this LIs we created a div element. So let's say the div element is going to style all divs. Wait just a second, did I have any other divs? This is a section tag. Actually I did, because yep, I have this div right here, so I need to take care. So we're going to say that only the divs that are in the LIs are going to be positioned relative. Going to be from the bottom. Going to be from the bottom 0. Scroll up a bit. Then they're going to have a height of 550 pixels, a width of 350 pixels. Let's give it a padding of 15 pixels. I'll actually give it a 1 RAM padding, so it's going to adjust to whatever pixel size is set automatically by the browser. And let's also give them a border radius of 5 pixels. And last thing will be a box shadow. And I could just copy this, paste it in here, but I still have to change a couple of things. So this should be 10 pixels, then 15, and I think that's okay. 15, 10, yep. Okay, now let's set our divs. So within a li, the divs Let's target there before. Now I want to create that little tiny dot, that little tiny, where is it? Triangle there. Okay. So let's first of all create within here a empty content, empty string. Let's position it absolute. We're gonna push it to the bottom, let's say 7 pixels. Up from the bottom, it's going to have a width of 0 and a height of 0. So it's absolutely nothing. And very important, we're going to set the border style value, style to solid. Okay, now let's say that within our allies, mchild, we're going to select the odd ones. And within this, the divs, we're going to push them left. Free rem. And now I'm going to just copy this and set the odd ones before to be left 15 pixels. Let's give them a border width of 8 pixels, 16 pixels, 8 pixels, and 0. Okay, now we're going to set the border color to a transparent and a hash. Let's give it a orange color. Just type in here orange red, this one. Then transparent, and for the last one also transparent. Okay, so we're going to have this little triangle. Hello. Okay, now let's take care of our evens because we want to took care of our odds. You can see they're pushed to the right. Now let's take care of these ones. These need to be pushed to the left side. So we're going to offset them by their width, by this one, plus their, actually 2 times their width, approximately. So let me copy this part right here. I'm going to change this to evens. Now up here we're going to set it from the left to minus 439 pixels. And we're going to change this to the right. We're going to change the axis here. So this will be top, right will be 0, and left will be then, actually wait a second, top, right, bottom, and left. Yep, 16 pixels. Okay, and within here I need to change this orange from here to here, and this should be transparent. And there we go. Okay. Now let's insert images within our backgrounds, because until now we just have this empty divs and, well, nothing in them. Yeah, and let me also give this a bit of a background. So I'm going to select the paragraph tag and to tell the background color should be RGBA, this one, and let's also give it a bit of a padding. Ooh, I don't need you. Padding all around of 0.5 rem. Okay, perfect. Now comes the interesting part. We're going to select our allies, and within them, we're going to select nth child, not nth of type, nth child. We're going to select the first one, and within this, the div. We're going to target the div. Now let's set its background to another image. You just need to copy in these images or these links. Okay, so this will be the first one. From Unsplashed again, just an image. So let's go up here to our very first child. Hello, child number 1. And there we go. And you know what? I should push down this paragraph tag with a margin from the top a bit. So let's do this by, where's the paragraph tag? There we go. Margin top of 2 rem. Let's see. This looks okay. Let me see, couldn't I just take this date of the end child and push it to the right text align right. So this was, I believe, within here, and within here we have, just copy this, and within this div we have a h2. Wasn't it an h2? Yep, we have an h2, so we're going to target that h2, and we're going to give it a text align to the right. Okay, let's hit save, and there we go. Okay, next up, let's take care of the next image. Now actually I'm just going to copy them in, and you can change them as you go along. So as you can guess, we need now to select our li, nth child again. I'm going to select the second one, div, and I'm going to make 10 copies of this. 10, 11. So let's go down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's hit save. So you will be number 3. Oh, close up. Number 4, number 5, number 6. I am not a number. I am a free man. 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 13. My lucky number. Okay, and now I'm just going to copy in the images. So this one goes in here, then comes this one, then this one, then you, and we have 8, 9, 10 so far, and so on. So number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 13. Boom! There we go. Let's take a look at our project. And there we go. There are our images. Okay. Next up, I also want to give this a bit of a dark background. So let's go back to our CSS. Let's go to that H2. Actually, above our paragraph tag, I'm also going to give them a general style of background color. I'm going to select the same color as we had here. I'm going to reduce its alpha to, let's say, 3. Now let's see how this looks. I don't like it. Don't like it at all. Do I have a black one, dark one here? Yes, I do. Okay, so let's change its width then. Of, let's say, 200 pixels. Let's see how this looks. Oh, it's going to push it away. You know what? We're going to change it back. And we're going to go with the opacity of just 1. And that's enough. Perfect. Okay, next up, let's go down here. Let's grab onto our LIs. Let's say after transition, we're going to transition its background. The 0.5 seconds and ease in out. Okay, so when they appear and disappear, I want them to have this transition effect for the background. Now, we're going to select all of the LIs, and when these LIs, we don't have this class right now, we're going to insert it using JavaScript. We'll have a in view. After, we're going to set the background to orange red. I misspelled view. Okay, and now we could start actually hiding, but I'm going to comment it out. So we're going to select our LIs, and within them the divs, and let's say visibility hidden, opacity 0, and transition all 0.5 seconds and easing out. Okay, so Actually, we are now going to hide everything, and we're going to bring them back using JavaScript. And they're only going to be brought back when they're in a certain position of the viewport. Okay, so let me also show you something else. Let's comment out this. So let me comment out this part. I'm going to comment it back in, but first I want to show you if we select the LIs and child, and we're going to select the odds and the evens then. First of all, the odds, and within this, the div. We're going to set it as a transform translate. We're going to want them to come in from a certain position. So we're going to translate the odd. We're going to transform the odds by using translate on the x-axis to 200 pixels. And we're going to do the same thing for the evens, even. And we're going to use here minus 200. So still on the x-axis of minus 200. So you can see the odds are on the right side and the evens on the left side, and they're pushed a bit away. And when they're going to appear from this position, going to move in. All right, next up, let's go down here, and let's say that the LIs in the class of InView, I'm going to select the divs, and we're going to set visibility hidden and opacity, hey, go back there, opacity 0. Sorry, I forgot to also set it to transform none, visibility visible, and opacity 1. Okay, so when they are going to have this class, because right now they don't have it and they're going to disappear. Okay, so boom, they're all gone. If I would give one of them this class, let's say the very first one, oh, sorry, not you, but the li class, and it has this class, then this is visible. Okay, now I'm going to take out this class, don't need it. And now let's go back to our CSS, and let's also create another class, because we want the LIs dot not in view. And within them, they're going to target the divs, and we're going to reverse everything that we did by setting the visibility to hidden and the opacity to 0. Okay, so this is going to help me when I'm either, let me show you on the finished project. Actually, this is what it does. Let's refresh the entire page. So it's going to come into view. You saw this is the odd one. It's going to come from the right side in from a opacity of 0. And it's going to have a certain transition of 0.5 seconds. And if I scroll down, then the next one is going to pop in. And when this leaves a certain viewport, it's going to disappear. And actually, let me show you here in the inspector. Let me put this on the right side. Okay, so let me show you what is happening here. Let's scroll up completely. You can see the classes. The first one is in view, and all the rest of them have the class of not in view. So as soon as I scroll down and the next li is in view, the other one will disappear, and so far and so on. Okay, so this is actually what is happening. Using JavaScript, we're changing the classes, and those classes that we assigned within our CSS are doing something. They send the visibility to either visible or hidden, and the opacity is either 0 or 1. Okay, so now we need to take care of this using JavaScript. Just a second. Didn't I want to? Oh yeah, this would be the last thing when we're also going to set this in. I also need to create a couple of media queries. This would be a form format. Okay, so let's do this actually. Let's go back in here. And let's first of all target our screen of at media. Let's say when, how should I do this? Max width. I think this is the best way. Max width, 600 pixels. going to take all of our allies and give them a margin left of 20 pixels. Then we're going to take our allies and within them the divs. And we're going to reset their width by calculating. We're going to use the calc function within CSS 100 viewport width minus 91 pixels. Now we need to push the evens, so this one's to the right side. So let's target the LIs, nth child. We're going to target the evens, within them the divs. And we're going to reset them from the left 35 pixels, because we had them at 400 something. And now I'm going to take the LIs, nth child evens again, and also reset the before. It's going to be now left minus 15 pixels, the triangle that we created. Border width of 8 pixels, 16 pixels, 8 pixels and 0. And border color of transparent, orange, red, transparent, and transparent again. Okay, so when this is the finished project. Inspect, and let's, oh, they are hidden. Which one was it? This one. We comment this part out so we can see all of them, and if we go underneath 600 pixels, then they should jump to the other side. Oh yeah, one last thing. I also need to do something that will be inherited actually. So up here at media, and let's say when we are at max width of 900 pixels, then all of the divs will have a max width of, actually width of 250 pixels, and we need to target the li evens again. So nth child, even, and within this the div, and I'm going to push them from the left minus 289 pixels. Okay, now it should work. Alright, now next up we're going to take care of our JavaScript. Okay, so let's go back to our editor and let's start with creating the file. We called it main.js. Now we're going to grab onto a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to grab onto only one thing. That will be the items. So let's create a variable with const. Let's call this items, and we're going to go to the document, create selector all, and want to select all of the elements, and in this case we're going to select all of the LIs. Now because we're using query select, I could do something like, let me show you first of all. Hey, come on. So we are within here, within our timeline class, okay? And within our timeline class we have a UL, and this has a couple of LIs. I could select this timeline class and tell our query selector that only the LIs that are in the timeline class. And I'm doing this, for example, if you have a navigation also, if you have multiple LIs, and if you don't want to give them a class, each of them, let's say you're going to only select this class, and from this class you're going to select all of the LIs. Okay, so now we could actually do something like, let me put this to the right side, and let's move the console down here. Let's also select the console. So now I need to go back to our CSS, comment this part back in, and they're all gone. Now open our JavaScript, close this file, push this a bit to the side. And first things first, we are now going to listen to the DOM. And to be more specific, going to listen to the DOM content loaded, and this event fires when the initial HTML document has been completely loaded and parsed. And this is without waiting for any style sheets, images, and subframes to be loaded. So let's go to our document, create an event listener. So add an event listener, and we are going to listen to the DOM content loaded. Okay, and when this is fired up, then we're going to use the arrow function, and within here we're going to create our functionality. So first of all, we need to check if the element is in the viewport, and for this we're going to create a function. So let's say function, and check if element is in viewport. So is element in viewport, and this will take in a element. Okay, so let's create a const within here. We're going to call it React. Within here we're going to grab onto our element dot get bounding client React. Okay, and this is actually a functionality. So this one right here. And this method returns a DOM rect object, providing information about the size of an element and its position relative to the viewport. Okay, so if you never use this, this is maybe a new thing for you. Okay, now this function will just need to return a, what I call it, React. It's not reactive, rect. So this needs to return a rect dot top. It's going to return for me a couple of positions, and this is, it's larger than or equal to 0, and rect dot left is also larger than or equal to 0, and rect dot bottom is less or equal to. And now we're going to open and close parentheses, and within here we're going to check the window inner height or the document element dot client height, and the client are we. And after this we're going to type in another and. We want to check all of the positions. Okay, so we have top, left, bottom, and we are now missing rect right. And this will also check if it's less or equal to, open and close parentheses, window dot inner width or document dot document element inner client again. We're going to check for the client width this time. Up there we checked for the height, and now we're checking for the width. Okay, so this function returns the position. So let's also call upon this function within our event listener. So first thing, we're going to call upon this one. Next up, we're going to create a callback function that is going to perform a for loop, which is going to loop through our elements, and in each case is going to assign or remove a class. So add or remove a class, and you can remember we created two classes. One was, is it in the viewport or is it not in the viewport? So let's go down here. Let's call this callback function func. Okay, now let's go down here. Let's create this callback function. So function, this is the function keyword, callback function, not user callback, callback func. So this function will create a for loop. Let's now create our let I equals to 0. Let, and as long as I is less than items dot length, we're going to iterate I. So I plus plus. Now this function will also check if, actually this loop will check if is element, so our function that we created up here, it's going to check the viewport. Is it in the viewport? And if it is, then it's going to take each element, each item. Now we're going to set the I in order to iterate for each of them. And we're going to tell it if this is true, then items I dot class list. What do I do here? Items dot class list. We're going to add the class of InViewport or InView. Okay, and if it's not, then we're going to remove it. So we're going to take this and create our else statement and add this down here. Okay, so we need to go up in our function on content load and add a couple of event listeners. So let's say to our window listener, window.add event listener, and we're going to listen to a load event. And when everything loads, then we're going to call upon our callback function. And also when we resize, and also when we scroll. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, so they are coming back in. Actually, let me close this one up. There we go. There's our project. There's our finished product. When we scroll down, the element will be added, and as soon as it's out of the viewport, it's going to disappear because the class of InView is going to be removed, as we said down here. So I think there was a bit of more CSS than usual in this project. And well, the functionality is a bit simplified, but it's actually complex. We're listening for a lot of things here. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for this project. Hope you enjoyed it, and well, catch you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, what is going on everyone, and welcome to another project. In this project, we're going to create a simple project manager in JavaScript. Now, for this, we're going to use a couple of things. For example, we're going to use getElementById, query selector all. We're going to use variables like left and const, functions, regular functions. We could also use arrow functions. We're also going to use temperate literals in some cases, comparison operators, DOM elements. We're going to style and manipulate a bit DOM classes, actually elements from the class. And we're also going to use an alternative to if and else if statements, which are ternary operators. Okay, so let's also take a look at the finished project. So as I said, basically we're going to have a manager which is going to show us the tasks that are in the project. Let's say the first task will be to create a project. So create. Then we need to assemble team. Oh, mistyped here. Now where is assemble team? Assign team leader. Let's say set milestone and set end date. Okay, so let's say create project is finished, assemble team is finished, and also set milestones are finished. And if we click on delete, then it's going to delete all. Actually, should delete all three of them. Okay, so there are only those are going to remain that are active. So this is a bit different than a task manager, but it's still using the same principle. Okay, so let's get started with the project. Okay, first things first, let's create an empty folder, and within here create our index.html. Let's start with the boilerplate, shift exclamation mark. Within here we're going to include materialize CSS. So let's go to materializecss.com, get started. And let's also include the link. And also let's link up our style.css, which we still need to create. So link link keyword, and style.css. Okay, let's go into the body. And within here, first of all, I'm going to create a form. Whoops. Into the body tags. Between the body tags, let's create a form which will contain the task manager. So form, let's say the action will be hash, so it's not going to go anywhere. And we're also going to give our form a ID of form. Now let's go into the form, and let's start within here with creating a div with a class of input container. Within our input container, we're going to have a label. We're going to leave the for empty. We could actually also delete it. And we're going to type in here what needs to be done. Okay, after this, we're going to have a input tag. So input is going to be the type of text. And then we're going to also give it a class of just input. Now for the ID, I'm also going to use input. We're going to keep it pretty simple. And then let's say placeholder, enter your task. Okay, underneath of this, we're going to create now a UL, which is going to take all the tasks and maintain them within there. So a UL with a class of task list. And let's also give it a ID of task underscore task. There we go. Underscore list. Okay, so that's basically it. And I'm going to create a list item within here just for us to see it right now. So let's create a list item. Let's call this task 01. And again, I typed in text. Task, man. What are you doing? Okay, so there's our task 01, and let's also create a task 02. So we have two tasks. Task 02. Okay, now let's link up right after our form. Let's link up our script. So script with the source of, let's say, task.js. Okay, now let's create our style.css. Style.css, and let's start styling it. But first we need to open it. Okay, so let's open this up using live server. And as always, I'm going to take this and snap it to the right side of it. Okay, let's bring this to the left. Close this one up, open. Actually, that's perfect. Let's also open up our style.css. And now let's start by taking our body, so body tag, and let's say height. 100 viewport heights, width 100 viewport width, and let's change the background color. Now I'm going to go with the URL. I'm going to go to pixels, not pixels, oh my god, source.unsplash. I'm going to take this random API, and either you could leave it as a random image. So I'm going to boop, constantly give you a random image. It's also center, and place it as cover and no repeat. Okay, so there's our image. You could either leave it this way, or I just chose a specific image for this, and so I'm going to replace the random with the ID of the image. And not this one, it was the other one. Okay, so there we go. There's our image. Now for the tasks, I'm actually seeing that we have a problem. Didn't I copy in material CSS? So style.css materializes in there. ID of input, class of input type. Oh, I just deleted text, and there we go. There's our input. Okay, let's go back to CSS. Now let's grab onto the H1 up there, and let's text align it to the center, and let's change the color to a aqua color. Boom. Now next up, we're going to take the form. We're going to position it relative, push it down from the top with 10 viewport heights. Then we're going to give it a max width of 450 pixels. And also assign the margin to auto, so it's going to be pushed into the center of the page. Auto. There we go. Okay, so now we have our form in the center of the page. Let me also zoom in here a bit. That's too much. I think you can still see this. Okay, now as you can see, we're inputting here in a dark color. So let's grab onto our input tag and change the color of the input to also aqua. Aqua. There we go. And let's also give the text a text shadow of 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 1 pixel, and hash 333. Okay, so now if I type in here something into my input, it's going to have a bit of a text shadow and also pop out. Okay, now let's go back to our form. So we set it as auto for the margin, so it's going to be centered in the center of the page. Let's also give it a background color of, let's say, RGBA of a dark color. So I'm going to RGBA, use 0 for the red, 0 for the green, 0 for the blue, and let's give it a bit of a opacity of 0.7. So there's our form right there. I still want to be able to see through the form, so you can see here is dark, but you can still see through it. This is why I'm going to use the opacity of the alpha of 0.7. Now let's also give it a padding. I'm going to give it all around padding, so not just top and bottom or something like that, but all around padding of 2 rem. Now let's change the border, not the size. Let's change the border radius to, let's say, 25 pixels. Okay. Well, actually, that's it. Should I give it a bit of a box shadow? Let's also give it a box shadow. Why not? Why not? Box shadow, let's say 0, 0, 10 pixels, 2 pixels, pixel, and here 10 pixel, and let's go with the RGBA of, let's say 5. Okay, so there's a bit of a shadow right underneath of that. Okay, now there should be, there's our allies. So let's style the allies first of all so we can see them. We're going to change the color also to aqua. Aqua. Okay, let's give this a width of 100% of its container. So all of the items, all of the list items would take up 100%. Okay, now do I still have that dot in there? No, I don't have it. Let's change the background color to RGBA of 280, 18. So RGBA, come on, 218, 212, and 212, and 0.2. Okay, so they have a bit of a lighter background color. Let's also increase their font size to 1.8 rem. Next up, let's give them a text shadow of the same text shadow that we had up there. So 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 1 pixel, and hash 333. Okay, we're going to set the text align to the center, so they'll also be aligned to the center of the page. And let's give them a border radius, the same border radius that we have up there, so it's going to look approximately the same. Then let's change the display to display flex. I'm going to justify the content, so now we can justify the content with space between. Okay, now let's also give them a bit of a padding. And this time I'm going to use 0 for top and bottom and 2 rem for left and right. Now after our padding, we're going to also give them a border of 1 pixel, so all around border of 1 pixel solid, and the same aqua color. I love this aqua color. Just look at it, how nice it is. Okay, let's give them a margin from the bottom. So each of them would, no, not left, bottom. There we go. So each of them will have a margin to the bottom of 1 rem. So it's going to push them a bit down, and let's also give them a box shadow and we're going to use the same box shadows, 1 0 0 10 pixels, 2 pixels. But for the RGB, and hey, should be pixel, I'm still thinking about games when I'm typing in XP. So 2 pixels and an RGBA, and let's go here with a color of 11 for the reds, 16 for the blues, and 66 for the greens, and let's go with the alpha of 0.6. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is to give them a bit of a transition. So let's say transition 0.3 seconds and linear. There we go. Okay, and this transition is only for when I'm deleting them, so they have a bit of a transition. Now let's also give them a hover state. So each time we hover over a list item, so list item hover, and when we hover over them, we want the background color to change a bit, so we know that we are over a specific list item. Let's change the background color to RGB. Let's use this one. Let's change this to 3. Let's change it to 4. Be a bit more darker, so when I hover over one of them, you can see it highlights. It is highlighted. And I'm going to also give this a transition of 0.3 seconds, so it's going to take a bit until it's highlighted. Okay, next I'm going to take the class of task -list. I'm going to select the allies, and when they have a class of completed, then the color of the text, let's delete this one, then the color of the text is going to change to, let's say, green yellow color. Okay, so only when they have the class of completed. Now also let's create a class of delete task, and when this class exists, task, and when this class exists, I want the cursor to be pointer. Okay, there we go. Now that's basically it for our UI. Next up is the JavaScript part. Okay, so let's create a JavaScript file first of all. So let's go to our folder back, and let's get a file, and we called it task.js. Not cast, task. Task.js. So let's also open up our console using F12 or right click and then go from elements to console, and let's hit the refresh. Now let's create a const for the form. So let's also grab onto the form document dot get element by ID, or use get quiz, or use query selector if you want. I'm going to use get element by ID this time. We're going to grab onto ID of form. I think I used a capital F for the ID. Okay, now let's also console log our form. Let's see if we grabbed onto it correctly. And there we go, there's our form. Next up, we're going to grab onto two more things. First thing will be the input. So I'm going to select both of them, input, and this will also capital I, or let's just see, to ID of input. No, it should be this way. Okay, now it should work. Let's also console log it. Okay, there's also our input. And next up, we're going to grab onto the task list. So we're going to create another const with task list. And here we're going to grab onto the ID of task underscore list. Okay, let's see. Let's console log this task list also. And there's a task list. Now, I did show you that there is a event listener. So let's take the form, add event listener. We could use submit, and when the submit happens, a function, blah, 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 blah. We could use something else. Instead of add event listener submit, it's actually doing the same thing. You could type in on submit. Okay, and this is basically a built-in function. So as soon as you do this, we need to assign it to a function. Now we don't we don't do the after the event listener assign it to the function, but we're now giving it a functionality. And you could either type in here function and then open close parenthesis and within here create a function, or let's take out the function keyword and let's use a arrow function. And let's also give it a event because we want to prevent the default behavior of the form. So e.prevent default of submitting. Okay, this is the first thing that we're going to do. Now next up, we're going to create another function which is going to called add task. So basically when we're submitting this form, we're adding a task. Now how can we submit the form? We're simply clicking into the input, typing something in and hitting on enter. And you can always see it submits this task. Now the add task function is not defined. Of course it's not, because we now need to create our function down here, function, the keyword function, and create the add task. Now how do we want to add a task? Well, let's say if there is a task, so if a task exists, then we want the task value to be equal to the task dot task dot text. Okay, so as soon as we type in here task, so let's use here the task as a argument in the function. Let's paste in here the task, and now we can grab onto this task. As soon as this task is passed in, let's say task value is equal to the input, so the input from up here dot value. Now instead of this if statement, I could also use a ternary operator. Now the conditional ternary operator is the only JavaScript operator that takes 3 operands: a conditional followed by a question mark. So our conditional was this, okay, the task. So you could take a task, then question mark, then an expression that is to be executed if this condition is true. So exactly what we did here, the task. So if the task exists, then the task.value is equal to the task text. And we need to put this into parentheses, because at the end of it, we need 2 columns. So we need a column. And finally, the expression to execute if the condition is false. So we're just going to return to the task. So it's basically, we're missing here else, nothing. Okay? It's going to just return. It's going to do nothing. Now this is exactly equal to what is up here. And copy this out and leave the other one in. Comment this out and the other one is going to be left in there. So let's try this out by console logging the task value. Okay, so let's type something in here, enter, and there's a task value. Okay, and I'm going to comment this one out just to show you that it's working. I'm going to also use our if statement. So let's type something in here, hit enter, and exactly what we typed in here is going to be output in our console logs, is going to be assigned to the task value. So let's comment this out, and let's use our ternary operator from now on. Now let's create another condition. So if the task value exists, then we're going to launch a function called display task. And if not, then return to the task value. Now target task value and close it up. Now let's create this function. So function display task, opening close parentheses, opening close curly brackets. Now within here we're going to create a const, and let's say new task. And we're going to assign this new task to the document.create element, and we're going to create a li. We're going to create a list item. Each time we're going to input something in here, this is going to launch this function, and this function is going to create a list item. Now we need to assign the list item to something. So let's say new task dot inner HTML is going to be equal to the task value. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's type something in here, and there's a task. And now in order to display it within our DOM, we just need to take the task list dot append child, and now we can append this new task to the task list. So append child, and this will append a new task. Okay, so let's try this out. If we type something in here, hit enter, then a new li is going to be created and is going to be put into the HTML of the new text, the inner HTML, and this new text task is going to be inputted into the task list. Okay, so if I create another one, so hit enter, so far and so on. But you can see this is not deleting, so we need to clear the input by typing in input.value. I'm going to assign it to an empty string, so basically nothing. So now if we type something in here, hit enter, it's going to disappear. We can type in another thing, and there we go, another task. Now we're not done yet, because after we assign this, we also want to have event listeners we want to select our tasks. So we're going to go over our task list, and we're going to say new task, and either I could add event listener and on click, and if you listen to a click, and so far and so on, but I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do exactly as we did up here. So there we could also use the on click function, and the same thing as we did up there, we need to assign it to a function now. We're going to assign it to an arrow function, and this will grab onto the new task, is going to create or actually toggle, which is adding and removing a class of completed. Okay, so we could actually we could do this. I could do it actually also here. So console log new task. So if I click on one, let's introduce one. If I click on it, it should have now the class completed. Okay, as you can see, the class completed as we created it in our CSS. So if the li has a class of completed, then the text will turn into yellow green, and it also does. Okay, let's comment this part out. Now let's take our task again, and let's check if it has that class of completed. So class list dot contains the class of completed, completed. Then we'll use a ternary operator again. So this is a bit more complicated, but I want you to get used to ternary operators. So question mark. So order is saying that if this is true, if the new task class list contains the class of completed, then open close parenthesis and open close parenthesis again. We're going to group something. We're going to take the new task dot inner HTML, and we're going to add to it using a template literal a span tag. Not here, but here, span. Within our span tag, going to use $, open close curly brackets, and within here we're going to add the task value. Now also going to use for the check mark a HTML command, which is ampersand, there's an ampersand hash 1000, and hey, there we go. So 100 and 4 at the end. Okay, and also semicolon. We have something open, we didn't close it up. Oh, because we're not finished yet. So wait. So we have the input with the check mark. Then we're going to create another span. No, so span tag. Let's go in a span tag. And please be careful, because now I'm going to include something in the span tag. So I could do here a on-click event, which is going to listen for a function. It's going to call delete task and open and close parentheses. And within here, we're going to create now a delete sign. And for this, we're going to use ampersand hash 10060. Okay, let's hit save. I'm still not closing up something in here. Let's see. This opens here, this closes here. Why are you not happy? So we got this, because I'm not done with our condition. Now, still remaining between the yellow parentheses, we're going to create another condition. So let's type in here, comma, new task dot class list dot toggle. Going to toggle here the class of delete task. Now I'm going to close it with a column, open close parentheses. This will create a group, and we're going to group it in here, another new task. So if this is not true, we're going now in the else statement. If this is not true, then else dot in a HTML is equal to a template string or a template literal of $sign up close curly brackets, and within here we're going to type in the task value. Okay, and we still have another condition, because this should be so comma and new task dot class list dot toggle delete task. This should be a class, so delete task. Okay, now I know this is a bit complex, but you need to learn this. This is exceptionally good. It's much quicker. So let's type in here a task. Let's hit enter. Let's click on it. You can see we have now the check sign and the delete sign. And now if I click on it again, it's going to appear and disappear. But check it out here. If I click on the delete button, then it's going to delete it. Well, it's not working right now because we're still missing the delete task function. We entered, let me also show you this. We go outside and console log our new task again. New task. Okay, so let's create a new task. Let's say get project. Okay, we console log is on click. Okay, now it's going to console log it. And now check it out. We are going to take a look in this. You can see it has two spans with the value that we typed in here. Okay, get project. And then it has another span, and this span has within it an event listener, which is listening for a function called delete task. Okay, so click on this X sign. Now let's go completely outside and let's create our delete task function. So let's type in the function keyword delete task, open close parenthesis, open close curly bracket, and let's first of all console log document dot query selector, because I want to show you something. Query select all. I'm going to select all of the LIs. So when I'm creating a new task, checking it, clicking on the X sign is going to console log all of the LIs. So it's going to give me a node list. Okay, now we can take this node list and loop over it. So let's say, I'm just going to copy this. No, let's take the document dot get query select all. So let's select all of the LIs. And now I'm going to add right here a for each loop. So for each, and let's use here callback function, an arrow function, and this is going to take in a element. So for each element that we select, for each li, we are going to get that element dot class list. Whoa! So get that element dot class list. We're going to check if it contains the delete task class, delete task, and if it does contain it, so I'm using a ternary operator again, then element, we're going to use the remove operator dot remove, and else return to the element. Okay, pretty simple. So this is going to actually remove all of the tasks. So let's say task 1 again, task. Oh, let me take out now, comment out these two, so we can now easily add tasks. So let's go in here. Let's say so get project, get team, assign leader, set milestone, get regular, feedback, finish project on time. Okay, so let's say we got the project, we got the team, we didn't assign a team leader, we set our milestones, and that's it. So if I click on either one of them, let's click on this one, it's going to delete all of the tasks. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this project, and see you next time. Bye-bye.